And speaking of cinema, an important part of our universal cultural heritage and possibly the most important art form of the 20th century. In my art movement shows, I try not to get too carried away with politics, but in the past, I have talked about how I believe that you can tell a lot about any given country's state of democracy by its treatment of the arts and cultural heritage at large. So, when we think about the totalitarians and extremists burning books, destroying artworks, or censoring and prosecuting artists, we tend to think of it as something of a different time. You know, footage from the past shot in black and white. Yet there are several worrying situations right now in various parts of the world that we should be aware of. One of these is certainly Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, which also happens to top my personal list of countries I've always wanted to visit. Since his election, the right-wing politician has done much to be considered one of the world's most controversial leaders today. He has trampled over human rights and decreased democratic rights in Brazil. In the process, he has also shown a great disregard for the arts and culture sector. Brazil has been one of the worst hit countries by the coronavirus pandemic, and this has unfortunately facilitated his government's plans for a stronghold on arts and culture as well as its educational sector. One of the latest examples is what is currently happening with the CINEMATECA Brasileira, which is the Cinemateca of Brazil. The Cinemateca Brasileira was founded in 1940, which makes it one of the oldest cinema institutions in the entire country. It's also home to the largest film archive in South America with 250,000 rolls of films and 1 million cinema-related documents. It is, in other words, the most important institution for preserving the memory of Brazilian cinema and also works from the cinemas of other countries that were discovered in Brazil. Despite its obvious invaluable status, the Bolsonaro government has little time for it. The Cinemateca's employees have not been paid since March. During this period, the government completely cut finances to the foundation tasked with looking after the Cinemateca, leaving the institution broke completely. As a result, the Cinemateca has not been able to pay its bills, and recently its electricity was cut off. And last Friday, a special secretariat for culture took the keys to the Cinemateca in an operation that involved heavily armed men from the federal police force. In addition, 41 employees were fired. A dismantling of the Cinemateca is actually currently underway with no experts in the preservation of film involved. Now, archiving films is not as easy as storing stacks of reels of films on a shelf. The film medium just requires a lot of care and attention in order to be preserved. Not to mention that each of the reels of film is painstakingly catalogued, as the risk of losing anything from any archive is always around the corner. So abrupt abandonment, the way in which it's happening in the Cinemateca, puts its cultural collection at great risk. And since much of the stored material is composed of nitrate, a substance that can spontaneously combust without proper care, things are really serious. Also, care is performed by highly skilled labourers. Without trained technical staff, all the national memory stored there may disappear forever.